New York is famous for many things: its skyscrapers, its energy, its rhythm. But also for something far less glamorous: its trash. Every year, the city generates over 14 million tons of waste, enough to fill more than 25,000 football fields to the brim. And yet, everything keeps running. Because while you sleep, an invisible army works non-stop collecting what no one wants. But the most incredible part isn't how much trash New York produces. It's where it all goes. Every day, over 8 million people live, eat, shop, cook, work, and throw things away in New York City. And if you add offices, restaurants, stores, airports, hospitals, and schools, the number skyrockets. 14 million tons of waste per year. That's the equivalent weight of 130 fully loaded aircraft carriers every single year. But no one really stops to think about it. The trash just vanishes. You leave a bag on the corner, and like magic, it's gone the next day. Who picked it up? Where did it go? What did they do with it? The truth is, waste management in New York isn't just a dirty job. It's a massive machine that runs 24/7. No breaks, no holidays, no applause. An operation as complex as the subway system, as old as the city itself, and as dangerous as any high-risk profession. Because cleaning New York isn't just about hygiene. It's a daily battle against disease, rats, logistical chaos, pollution, and a story filled with more secrets than you'd ever expect. But how did it all begin? Has it always been this organized? This is where the real journey starts. To understand how New York's trash system works today, you have to look back, way back. In the 17th century, when Dutch settlers founded what was then a small port called New Amsterdam, the concept of waste management was, quite literally, to dump everything in the water. Food scraps, bones, old clothes, dead animals. It all ended up in the river or nearby ponds. One of those was called Collect Pond, and it didn't take long to turn into a toxic swamp. As the centuries passed, the city grew, and so did the problem. By the 19th century, New York smelled so bad that sailors claimed they could detect the stench from 6 kilometers offshore. And they weren't exaggerating. Epidemics were constant: cholera, yellow fever, malaria, typhus. Thousands died from diseases tied to garbage and contaminated water. By 1850, New York had 500,000 residents, 10 times more than at the start of the century, but still no organized trash collection. The streets were piled with waste, and pigs and stray dogs were, quite literally, part of the cleanup crew. It wasn't until 1881 that the Department of Street Cleaning was officially created, and while it sounded good on paper, in reality, it was a daily war against the impossible. But here's the twist. Did you know that for decades, New York's trash business was tied to the mafia? For much of the 20th century, trash in New York wasn't just trash. It was a business, a highly lucrative one. And, as usually happens with lucrative businesses, organized crime got involved. For decades, several mafia families, including some of the city's most powerful, divided up control of the waste collection industry like it was their personal territory. They decided which companies could operate, set the prices, extorted competitors, and even used violence to maintain control. It wasn't until the 1990s that authorities launched a major legal crackdown to dismantle the network. Through investigations, wiretaps, and arrests, they significantly weakened the mafia's grip on the industry. Today, the system is far more regulated and modernized. Organized crime has lost almost all control. But the structure is still complex. More than 2,100 sanitation department trucks hit the streets every day, collecting around 12,000 tons of waste. At the same time, dozens of private companies continue operating independently. It's an enormous choreography that seems to work, until it doesn't. Because New York no longer has landfills, no longer has incinerators within the city. So, where the hell does all that garbage go? Few people know this, but New York doesn't bury or burn a single bag of its trash within city limits. Not one. Today, every garbage truck you see unloading is actually stopping at what's called a transfer station. These are massive facilities where the trash is compacted, sealed, and prepared for a journey. A journey to where? Well, it depends. Some tons are loaded onto barges that sail off to New Jersey. Others go straight into trucks or trains that travel hundreds of kilometers away. And that's where a surprisingly expensive and silent process begins. Some of the waste ends up in incinerators, where it's burned to generate electricity. Sounds practical, right? But there's an uncomfortable truth. Most of these incineration plants are located in underprivileged neighborhoods, far from Manhattan, in places like Ironbound in Newark. Areas largely inhabited by low-income communities, many of them Latino and African-American families. There, day and night, thousands of tons of waste are burned, releasing substances that, according to experts, have a direct impact on the health of those who live nearby. And all the while, the city carries on as if nothing's happening, as if the garbage just vanishes into thin air. The irony? In the very same places where the garbage once arrived, electricity is now being produced. Yes, power to light homes, charge phones, or turn on the TV. It's the perfect circle of urban paradox. What we throw away ends up feeding the city. But it does so at someone else's expense. And what isn't burned? It travels even farther, to Pennsylvania, Virginia, South Carolina. Thousands of tons of New York's garbage buried in other states, in exchange for millions of dollars each year. But what about the old landfills inside the city? Where are those giant garbage cemeteries we used to rely on? That's where things get even more surreal. On Staten Island, there's a place that looks like it belongs on a postcard. Rolling green hills, sweeping views of the horizon, even sunsets straight out of a movie. What most people don't realize is that this landscape is built on trash. Literally. It's called Fresh Kills, and for decades, it was the largest landfill on the planet. Opened in 1948, this site once received 28,000 tons of garbage per day. Mountains of waste that rose over 60 meters high, taller than a 20-story building. By the time it closed in 2001, more than 150 million tons of waste had been buried there. But instead of leaving it behind, the city chose to transform it. They sealed the mountains with special layers, installed pipes to drain contaminated water, and began the slow process of turning the landfill into a public park. Today, Fresh Kills is an ecological project in progress, a space that stands as a symbol of a dark past and a chance for redemption. Because if there's one thing this story makes clear, it's this: nothing truly disappears. Trash, like the choices we make every day, ends up somewhere. We just prefer not to look. Can a city like New York ever truly achieve zero waste? Or are we just pushing the problem further and further away? What's clear is that while you're watching this video, thousands of black trash bags are still on the move. And at the end of that journey, there are other people, other communities, other landscapes. Trash isn't just trash, it's a reflection of who we are, what we consume, and what we choose to ignore. In cities like New York, the system works precisely because it doesn't force us to look. But looking, that's the first step to understanding. If this video made you see things differently, share it and let us know. Where do you think our trash really ends up when we believe it's no longer our problem? Can a city like New York ever truly achieve zero waste? Or are we just pushing the problem further and further away?